Some plants crave sunlight and burst forth only when they're bathed in brilliance. Others thrive in shadows, stretching patiently in corners, drawing life from silence, not spectacle. But there's a rarer kind still, the kind that doesn't just live quietly, but teaches you how to do the same. It shows you that strength doesn't need sound, that wealth doesn't need display, and that true support doesn't always look like applause. It sometimes looks like a single leaf slowly unfurling in the background, holding your home together while the rest of the world races by. In Feng Shui, not every plant is meant to be seen first. Some are meant to be felt. Today we're diving into the energy of a plant that most people walk past without understanding its power. But once you've seen what it can do, especially in the context of financial healing, space recalibration, and emotional recovery, you'll never look at it the same way again. This is not a story about trends. It's not about flashy rituals or dramatic transformations. This is about stealth wealth, quiet resilience, rooted growth that doesn't need validation to be effective. And the hero of today's video, the ZZPlant, is exactly that. Unassuming, wildly adaptable, and surprisingly potent in the right hands. You see, we live in a time where wealth is often associated with action, with speed, with visibility. Everyone wants to show their progress. Everyone wants to display their wins. Even in our homes, we decorate with symbols of achievement, of confidence, of brightness. But sometimes the most powerful shift doesn't come from adding more light. It comes from stabilizing the dark corners, from acknowledging the parts of your space and your psyche that have been ignored. The ZZPlant doesn't ask to be seen. It asks to be respected. It thrives where other plants give up. It holds energy in spaces that most people forget. And in Feng Shui, that's not just a nice bonus. It's a superpower. Today, I want to show you how to work with the ZZPlant not as a decorative filler, but as an energetic anchor, especially if you're rebuilding after burnout, recovering from financial instability, or simply trying to cultivate sustainable abundance in a home that has felt a little too loud, too fast, too scattered. This plant teaches you how to build without broadcasting, how to heal without dramatizing, and how to grow without needing to constantly prove that growth is happening. That's the kind of energy many of us need more of, because in the pursuit of more, we often forget that the first form of wealth is stability, and the second is peace. So if you're someone who resonates with that idea, someone who's not chasing glitter but grounding, who's more interested in quiet momentum than loud noise, I invite you to stay with me through this video. We're going to walk through everything you need to know about the ZZPlant from a Feng Shui perspective. Not just what it looks like or how to water it, but what it does for your space, where to place it for maximum energetic support, what kind of person it resonates with most deeply, and how even a billionaire like Michael Bloomberg quietly used it to recalibrate his personal office after one of the biggest financial downturns of his career. You'll learn where this plant belongs in your home and where it absolutely does not. You'll learn how to listen to its signals, enhance its power with simple shifts, and even how to know if your plant is trying to tell you something is out of balance in your life. But before we get into the mechanics, the placements, and the symbolism, I want to invite you to pause with me just for a second. If this video resonates with you so far, if you feel a little more seen, a little more supported by the thought that maybe, just maybe, you don't have to push so hard to make your space work for you, I'd love to ask for your support. Leave a like on this video. Share it with someone who might be in a season of rebuilding. Someone who's felt overwhelmed by loud solutions and is ready for something softer, stronger, more sustainable. And subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. We are steadily growing toward our next milestone, 2,000 subscribers. And with each person who joins us, this community gets a little stronger, a little wiser and a little more rooted in the kind of knowledge that doesn't fade with trends. The kind of knowledge that nourishes your home and your spirit at the same time. Because this isn't just about plants, it's about purpose. It's about design that feels like support, not decoration. And it's about building a space that doesn't just look good in daylight, but that holds you when the lights are low, the noise is gone, and what remains is you, and the energy you've chosen to live alongside. The ZZPlant may not bloom with color. It may not demand your attention, but it holds its space like a quiet teacher, a quiet protector, a quiet invitation to redefine what real prosperity feels like. Now let's explore why this particular plant has been used not just in households, but in executive offices, in healing spaces, and in recovery homes. Let's explore how to honor its role, where to place it, what not to do, and most importantly, what it can help awaken in you. Because sometimes the most important transformation doesn't begin with noise. It begins with a leaf, quiet, green, unwavering, and utterly loyal to your long-term vision. Let's begin. The energetic signature of the ZZ plant. The ZZ plant, formerly known as Zamioculcas zamiifolia, does not announce itself with bright flowers or a sprawling canopy. It doesn't reach upward like a bamboo shoot or unfold in waves like a peace lily. Instead, it holds, it gathers, it steadies. And in Feng Shui, that quiet holding pattern becomes one of its most sacred gifts. This plant embodies what we often forget in our pursuit of prosperity. That sustainable wealth rarely moves like lightning. More often, it moves like water beneath rock, slow, persistent, and powerful only when anchored. The ZZ's coin-shaped, glossy leaves are not just aesthetically pleasing. Their round, symmetrical structure directly mirrors ancient currency, the kind used in dynastic China and throughout much of early Southeast Asia, stacked vertically in slow accumulation rather than scattered bursts. Each stalk is a small column of potential, and each leaf is a symbol of retained ki. In Feng Shui, when we speak of stealth wealth, we are referring to a category of energetic flow that moves without seeking attention. It is not sudden gain, it is stored capacity, not the applause of outer success, but the quiet whisper of inner security. The ZZ plant speaks fluently in this energetic dialect. It survives when neglected. It grows slowly but surely, and it holds energetic space even in rooms where light is scarce and life has recently dimmed. Energetically, the ZZ plant presents an interesting paradox. Structurally, it's very clearly a wood element plant. It has upward growth, strong stalks, and its own internal rhythm. But its behavioral chi leans heavily into earth. It doesn't rise quickly, it stabilizes. It doesn't chase the sun, it settles beneath it. That makes the ZZ plant a bridge, one of the few symbolic botanical figures in Feng Shui that connects the ambition of the wood element with the grounding of earth. For homes that feel out of rhythm, spaces that feel either too busy or too inert, the ZZ becomes a harmonizer. Its deeply yin signature slows down overly yang rooms, softens restless minds, and brings gentle structure to emotional volatility. This is particularly useful in homes where grief has lingered, financial anxiety has thickened the air, or too many unfinished tasks have created energetic fog. The ZZ doesn't cut through that fog. It absorbs it, filters it, holds space for clarity to return on its own time. One of the most overlooked aspects of plant symbolism is emotional memory. Certain plants, when placed in a home, carry not just form but message. The message of the ZZ plant is resilience without complaint. It's the reminder that you don't have to be thriving to be stable, that you don't need to be in bloom to be growing, that you can recover day by day with barely noticeable signs and still one day look back and realize just how far you've come. This plant belongs in homes that have gone through something, homes that have known disruption and are trying to become sacred again. It doesn't impose healing, it allows for it. In that way, it mirrors one of the deepest truths in energy design, that support is not always about effort. Sometimes it's about presence. Sometimes it's about what stays alive quietly in the background until you are ready to meet it again. This is why the ZZPlant is especially revered in wealth-related Feng Shui, but not because it causes money to fall from the ceiling. That kind of exaggerated promise has no place in authentic Feng Shui. Instead, what the ZZ does is stabilize the energetic field around wealth. It creates a soft container for long-term accumulation, like a good savings habit or a well-rooted foundation. It does not reward ambition without alignment. It rewards consistency, which is why people often report that after introducing the ZZ into their wealth corner or workspace, this is especially important for those who are in transitional phases of life, such as moving out of survival mode, recovering from burnout, or stepping out of a past financial identity and into a new one. The ZZ becomes a non-judgmental witness to the process. It thrives in low-attention spaces, yet continues to hold presence. That makes it ideal for people who want the benefits of energetic balance, but don't want the pressure of daily rituals or high-maintenance care. It thrives in homes where attention is inconsistent, but intention is sincere. It gives back more than it takes. And in a time when everything seems to demand your effort, that balance alone can be healing. When placed with thoughtfulness, the ZZ plant subtly shifts the tone of a room. Its energy is low and dense in the best way, not heavy but grounded. That grounding is what helps anchor prosperity, not the sudden gain from risk, but the steady rise from structure. Think of it not as a sprinter, but as a weightlifter who builds strength repetition by repetition. Unglamorous, but effective. If your home needs a reset, not to erase the past, but to stabilize the present, the ZZ plant is not just a decorative object. It is a collaborator in that recovery. It's also deeply responsive to clarity of placement. In Feng Shui, we always say, a plant does not just affect the room, it reflects the room. And the ZZ is no exception. If you place it beside a financial goal or vision board, it amplifies stability around that goal. If you place it in the corner of your home where forgotten paperwork stacks up, it becomes a silent assistant for clearing mental backlog. If you put it beside your desk while launching a side project or rebuilding your savings, it supports the nervous system through every delayed payment and every small win. Its presence is calming, not in the way lavender calms, but in the way a thick wooden floor calms. You know it won't give out beneath you. And finally, it's important to recognize that the ZZ plant doesn't just represent recovery, it also represents readiness. Because a plant that holds its own in low light with minimal watering, in the midst of mess, and still grows, doesn't just reflect where you have been. It affirms where you're going. It's the perfect companion for anyone seeking to rebuild wealth, reclaim space, and recalibrate energy without shouting about it. It teaches you that you don't need constant visibility to be valuable, that real power doesn't always bloom. It builds, and that in your journey toward abundance, there's space for slowness, for rest, for roots, and for the quiet strength that will carry you there. Where to place the ZZ plant for maximum effect? Where you place the ZZ plant determines not just how well it grows, but how effectively it serves your space as a stabilizing force. In Feng Shui, placement is never random. Every direction, corner, or elevation carries its own energy blueprint. And the ZZ is particularly responsive to this subtle architecture. Though it may appear low maintenance, this plant is deeply sensitive to the intent and energy fields surrounding it, and it functions best when its positioning echoes its symbolic role: quiet, consistent, and restorative. The southeast corner of any room or home has long been considered the primary wealth sector in classical Bagua theory. It is where wood energy flourishes and where prosperity, legacy, and financial sustenance take root. However, it is also the area most prone to imbalance when other more active wealth plants, like bamboo or money trees, are overused or mismanaged. This is precisely where the ZZ plant thrives, not by competing, but by grounding. It nourishes the wealth corner not through expansion, but through preservation. It's the plant that holds financial chai when other elements feel too volatile, especially in households where past financial wounds linger or where the idea of money itself carries tension. The ZZ becomes a soft guardian, a quiet accountant of energy, ensuring that resources aren't just attracted, but retained. In rooms where prosperity feels stagnant, the ZZ reestablishes circulation without overwhelming the field. It does not demand growth. It protects the conditions that allow for it. In modern life, many of us spend our best energetic hours in office settings, home-based or corporate, where light is limited and air is recycled. The ZZ plant, unbothered by low light or irregular care, finds its second home here. In office corners where fluorescent fatigue dulls focus and ambition flickers under the weight of deadlines, the ZZ holds a steady presence. Placing it behind your desk, at your side near your reading chair, or in a corner diagonal to your working area allows it to absorb heavy thoughts and stabilize intellectual momentum. Its presence signals long-game thinking. It doesn't rush the mind, it paces it. For entrepreneurs or remote workers navigating uncertainty, the ZZ becomes a visual metronome of steadiness, particularly powerful when placed beside vision boards, business documents, or financial ledgers. It's as if the plant quietly affirms you can take your time, you're building something lasting. Hallways, forgotten corners, and dead spaces in a home are often overlooked in Feng Shui. These areas may not attract attention, but they carry disproportionate energetic influence. Stagnant chi pools in these spaces, like dust in an undisturbed attic, gradually affecting the movement of energy throughout the house. The ZZ plant, with its dense foliage and self-contained rhythm, is the perfect candidate to revive these corners. It doesn't flood the space with yang energy. Instead, it encourages low-level motion, just enough to prevent energetic decay, especially effective in narrow transitional zones, such as the area between kitchen and dining space or near stair landings. It gently collects and redistributes the energetic flow that would otherwise go dull. A pair of small ZZs flanking a hallway entrance can symbolically bookend chai, ensuring that energy enters and exits with respect and intention. Yet, as powerful as this plant can be, there are areas in the home where it should not be placed. The bedroom, for example, is a space of emotional release and vulnerability. It is where we detox from the demands of daily action, where we shed tension, process dreams, and recalibrate the body's subtle rhythms. The ZZ, while not toxic energetically, is far too stable for such an emotionally fluid zone. Its presence can unintentionally dull the room's emotional frequency, slowing emotional release and muting intuitive clarity. If the bedroom is your only option, position it far from the bed and near a window, and always pair it with a more yin-leaning emotional plant like a peace lily to temper its solidity. Bathrooms present another unique challenge. In Feng Shui, the bathroom is an energetic drain zone. It is associated with constant flushing, expelling, and downward water movement. Placing a ZZ plant in or near this zone symbolically places your stored wealth and resilience near an energetic exit. Even if the plant appears healthy, what it represents becomes weakened. If a bathroom is near your home's wealth corner, counteract its effects with mirrors, metal objects, or light sources, but keep the ZZ elsewhere. Let it do its work in areas where energy can gather, not escape. The elevation of the plant matters too. In Feng Shui, qi does not simply exist. It moves, rises, and circulates. Placing a ZZ plant directly on the floor, especially in rooms with heavy traffic or dense flooring materials like concrete, results in that energy sinking rather than interacting. Think of it this way. When a plant is placed too low, it absorbs the gravity of the room instead of meeting its energy. Always elevate the ZZ at least to waist or desk height using a wooden stand, a ceramic base, or a natural tone pedestal. Wood encourages movement and growth, ceramic grounds and stabilizes. Avoid synthetic or metallic-looking plastic pots. They energetically confuse the plant's message and block its more natural rhythm. Keep its base clean, dust-free, and stable. No wobbly stands. The more rooted the plant feels in its placement, the more stability it communicates to the home's key. One micro-practice that dramatically influences the plant's subtle function is weekly rotation. A 45-degree turn once every 7 days prevents energetic stagnation and reminds the plant to balance its internal polarity. This matters because the ZZ's leaves always reach quietly toward light, even when invisible. That same subtle reaching, if unchecked, can make the plant lean too far symbolically toward a single energetic goal, such as financial growth without emotional balance. Rotating helps it regulate its own ambitions, and by extension, yours. And while the plant may survive without it, this is the difference between survival and resonance. Wiping the leaves weekly is another simple but potent act. Dust in Feng Shui is not just a physical sign of neglect. It is a spiritual indicator that the object has been forgotten. When leaves become dull or covered, the plant's reflective quality, the coin shine that symbolizes stored abundance, is dimmed. Wiping the ZZ's leaves is like polishing your intention. It's a visual metaphor for staying conscious of your own accumulation habits. Are you saving without gratitude? Are you pushing without pausing? Are you collecting without appreciating? The act of cleaning the leaves reactivates the relationship between you and the plant, not as caretaker and object, but as partners in the slow cultivation of something meaningful. Ultimately, placing the ZZ plant isn't just about choosing a location. It's about assigning it a role. Is it there to restore stability in your career, to recover financial losses in your home, to bring emotional ease to a high-tension zone, or to teach you the discipline of slow, consistent stewardship? The more intentional you are in your placement, the more clearly the plant will work with you. Not for you, with you. Because in energy work, nothing acts in isolation, especially not a plant like this, one that's built for quiet reinforcement, not attention. A quiet reboot in Michael Bloomberg's office. In the aftermath of the early 2000s tech bubble burst, when entire industries were reeling and public confidence in financial stability was plummeting, one of the quietest but most intentional office redesigns occurred in the private corner of a high-rise building in Manhattan. Michael Bloomberg, already a towering figure in both finance and media, made a decision that most CEOs would have dismissed as aesthetic or inconsequential. He didn't overhaul his team. He didn't double down on technology. Instead, he focused on atmosphere, on space, on the energy that held him in place long before strategy could be executed. And at the heart of this recalibration, surprisingly, were plants. More specifically, a selection of ZZ plants placed with surgical precision throughout his office environment. At the time, Bloomberg was entering a transitional period. His company had survived the dot-com implosion, but tension was in the air. Economically, culturally, even psychologically. The future was unclear, and for someone who had built his name on foresight and data, the ambiguity was quietly pressing. He didn't want more screens. He didn't want louder design. He wanted reinforcement. a sense of quiet endurance in a room that needed more than light. According to private sources and design insiders, he consulted not just with interior architects, but with Eastern influence energy specialists, those trained to read the emotional blueprint of a space and adjust it not through force, but through intentional symbolism. The advice he received was unexpected but intuitive. Redesign not for display, but for resilience. Create an office that felt like it had already endured, not one that was reaching for control, but one that had already weathered a storm. That meant softening certain angles, redirecting stagnant chi, and most notably, introducing plants that could stabilize energy without requiring visibility. The ZZPlant became central to this approach. Traditional wealth plants like the money tree or bamboo struggled in the dimmer corners of the Manhattan office, especially in zones without consistent light. But the ZZPlant thrived there not because it needed less, but because it knew how to do more with less. They were placed in alcoves near the back of the room, beside structural beams that absorbed more pressure than light. One was even stationed behind a semi-opaque partition in the finance meeting area. A placement that most designers would have considered ornamental, if not irrelevant. But those who worked closely with Bloomberg began to notice something shift. Not in the numbers, not in the policies, but in the mood. The air felt less reactive. Meetings that once pulsed with invisible friction now moved more deliberately. There was still pressure, still high stakes, but something had grounded. It wasn't louder, it wasn't faster, it was more measured, more steady. And in the midst of what many had expected to be a slow unraveling, a quiet fortification was taking place. These ZZ plants were not positioned as talking points. There were no spotlights, no plaques. They were part of what we in Feng Shui call the silent visual code. Objects placed not to be admired, but to alter the frequency of the room. And they did. Just by existing, by thriving where others withered, they sent a message to every corner of the space. This office does not rely on showmanship. It relies on stamina, on sustainability, on support systems that don't collapse under stress. For Bloomberg, a man known for his precision and long-game strategies, the symbolism of the ZZ plant was not abstract. It mirrored his approach to enterprise: measured risk, slow and solid recovery, investment in fundamentals rather than optics. In a world that was obsessed with what was loud, urgent, and visible, he opted to stabilize the unseen. And that's where the real Feng Shui happened. Not in the decor, but in the subtle recalibration of energy that came from understanding that space too must heal after trauma. In Eastern metaphysics, we know that even physical environments carry memory. A room that has hosted stress, anxiety, or failure, no matter how expensive the furniture, is like a body that has endured illness. It holds echoes. And so, like acupuncture for the home or office, the introduction of the ZZ plant was not cosmetic. It was corrective. These plants slowly rewrote the narrative of those corners, not with flair, but with frequency. They offered energetic scaffolding in places where psychological load was most felt, and their survival became a symbol in itself. When nothing else could thrive, they stayed, they held. They reminded everyone walking past them that endurance is a design language all its own. This story isn't just about a billionaire's office or corporate aesthetics. It's about the deeper lesson Bloomberg's choice reflects: that the best investments aren't always numerical. Some are spatial, some are symbolic, some are quiet decisions you make about what holds you while you make harder ones. Most people think success is about constant movement, but those who truly endure understand that success is also about recovery, about knowing where your attention is being drained and reinforcing those zones before collapse becomes inevitable. So when you're thinking about your own space, your office, your study, your hallway, ask yourself not just what looks nice, ask what holds you. Ask what stabilizes your decision-making, what strengthens your focus without competing for your gaze. The ZZ plant, in all its understated resilience, is not just decorative, it's directional. It shows you where to place your support and how to let it do its work, even when you're busy doing yours. Who needs this plant most? Who needs this plant most? The ZZ plant is not a universal remedy, but when placed in the right environment and matched with the right energetic intent, it becomes one of the most quietly transformative plants you can introduce into a space. This plant isn't designed for those chasing thrills or rapid expansion. It wasn't made for those seeking overnight change or immediate visibility. The ZZ plant serves a very particular kind of soul, the one who's been tested, the one who's learned the cost of running too fast, the one who now seeks a different currency: consistency, safety, steadiness. It belongs to the person who has come through some kind of storm, maybe a business collapse, a job loss, a financial betrayal, or simply the deep fatigue that comes from living too long in survival mode. Its energy signature speaks directly to those who are not beginning for the first time, but beginning again and again and again. Solopreneurs rebuilding after burnout, creatives who've taken bold risks and are now trying to find their footing, individuals who've tasted ambition but now crave grounding. These are the people who benefit most from the ZZ's frequency. It doesn't give momentum, it gives durability. Place this plant in your home office, and it won't amplify your to-do list or push you into urgency. What it will do is meet your energy where it is. It will sit beside your plans and your drafts and your spreadsheets and whisper that you don't need to chase a viral moment to build something meaningful. It will be there for you on the days you feel stuck, not to pull you out of that space with noise, but to hold the room steady until you are ready to move again. It is the plant for those who have grown tired of false starts, those who want to move slowly, but with full conviction. For remote workers, particularly those living in small apartments or shared spaces, the ZZ becomes a symbolic boundary setter. It's no secret that when our homes become our workplaces, the lines between personal and professional, rest and responsibility, begin to blur. The desk becomes the dinner table. The corner where we once meditated becomes the spot where we now scroll through spreadsheets and respond to Slack messages. Over time, this blending of roles can begin to deplete energy. The ZZ plant, when placed intentionally in these blurred zones, like the corner of a multi-purpose room or beside the edge of a dual-use table, acts like a quiet, energetic partition. It doesn't scream office or home. It simply signals that this space has a function, that this person is anchoring themselves even in a limited square footage, and that clarity is being quietly reclaimed. Because for those who work alone, especially in solitude, it's not about making the space louder. It's about giving the space shape. And the ZZ is particularly gifted at holding form in rooms that have lost their boundaries. Families recovering from financial hardship or navigating emotional strain around money also find deep alignment with this plant. We don't talk enough about the psychic weight that money wounds carry. For some families, wealth isn't just a dream, it's a trigger. Arguments, fears, comparisons, and generational patterns often play out in subtle conversations, glances, hesitations. In such households where prosperity isn't just a goal, but a deeply emotional territory, the ZZ becomes a stabilizer. Placed in common areas where conversations occur, like the dining room, shared study spaces, or transitional hallways, it does the invisible work of softening conflict. Not by muting emotion, but by holding the space with calm structure. It creates a backdrop that supports emotional neutrality, helping financial talks to unfold without friction, without volatility. Over time, its slow, consistent presence begins to echo the very habits these families are trying to build: resilience, recovery, regulation. This plant is also ideal for people who are seeking strength that doesn't require a spotlight. If you're the kind of person who finds peace in solitude, who feels most centered when the world is quiet, who prefers depth over volume and presence over posturing, then the ZZ plant is already your mirror. It doesn't try to change the rhythm of your day. It simply reinforces it. It says, you don't have to keep proving yourself to stay stable. And in a world addicted to visibility, that message alone can be profoundly healing. For introverts, highly sensitive individuals, and those on personal journeys that are more internal than external, this plant becomes an ally, not pushing you to bloom prematurely, not dragging you into comparison, but simply coexisting with you in stillness. It's also important to understand that compatibility with the ZZ plant isn't just about personality, it's about readiness. This is a plant for those who are ready to stop rushing, who are ready to stop apologizing for needing space, who are ready to build something meaningful without sacrificing their nervous system to do it. This is the plant you bring home when you've decided to start building roots, not just reaching for leaves. When you want to say yes to structure, but in a way that feels gentle. When you want to protect your progress, not broadcast it. When your relationship with growth has matured from hunger to harmony. For people dealing with ADHD, PTSD, or nervous system imbalances, the ZZ is also a therapeutic presence. Not because it fixes anything, but because it models a different pace. It holds still. It doesn't demand attention. It simply thrives quietly. For individuals who feel scattered easily, who are sensitive to overstimulation, who need their homes to offer nervous system regulation, this plant becomes a kind of visual sedative, a signal to the body that not everything needs to be activated, that you can grow and rest at the same time, that a slower life isn't a lesser life. And finally, the ZZ plant is for the spiritually private, for those who do their rituals quietly, who may not talk openly about energy or intention, but who know exactly what they're doing when they clean their space, light a candle, or turn toward a vision board. This is not a plant for declarations. It is a plant for intentions. It supports those who don't need others to understand what they're building. Only that they are building something sacred, something stable, something sustainable. And in that way, it becomes not just a plant, but a companion, a quiet one, but a powerful one. Because the truth is, not all support has to be loud. Sometimes the best kind of support is the kind that simply stays, no matter what. Mistakes to avoid. When people bring the ZZ plant into their home, they often assume it is a purely decorative choice, a passive accessory to fill a corner or add a touch of green. And in many homes, it ends up neglected, misunderstood, or even worse, energetically misused. But if you're working with the ZZ plant from an intentional Feng Shui informed perspective, the way you treat this plant and the conditions you place it under speak volumes about the type of support you're allowing in your life. Misplacing or mistreating the ZZ isn't just a horticultural issue, it becomes a symbolic one. And the most common mistakes are not physical errors alone. They're energetic misalignments that reflect back into your mood, your decisions, and even your sense of momentum. The most frequent mistake, and perhaps the most dangerous energetically, is overwatering. At first glance, this may seem like a simple misjudgment. The ZZ looks lush, so people assume it's thirsty. But this plant is succulent-based. It stores moisture in its thick, rhizomatous roots, meaning it prefers to dry out between waterings. It doesn't respond well to constant saturation. When you overwater it, you drown its roots, suffocate its breath, and eventually introduce root rot, a slow decay that may not show on the surface until it's too late. In Feng Shui terms, this isn't just about water in the soil. It symbolizes emotional overextension. The pattern of trying to do too much, care too fast, fix what hasn't even been asked for yet. It's the energetic equivalent of smothering support. And while your intention might be love or attentiveness, the outcome is suffocation of both the plant and, metaphorically, your own emotional bandwidth. Overwatering also represents the archetype of the anxious helper, the person who wants so badly to do everything right that they overcompensate, flooding a system that never asked for that much input. If you find yourself watering the ZZ out of habit, guilt, or schedule rather than observation, pause. This plant teaches patience through its silence. It does not wilt to get your attention. It does not cry out for care. It quietly signals when it needs something, through a soft droop, a slight dulling of the leaves. The rest of the time, it simply asks to be trusted. So resist the urge to over-nurture. Give it space. Give yourself space. In doing so, you'll begin to form a new relationship with control, one that honors balance over urgency. Another mistake, equally subtle and often made with the best of intentions, is placing the ZZ plant in zones that are not just low light, but energetically stagnant. Yes, this plant can survive in darker corners. It's celebrated for that. But just because it can live there doesn't mean it thrives there. Placing it in an area that is not only dark, but also cluttered, like an unused storage room, a chaotic entryway, or a cramped hallway, puts it in the path of dead qi. These are places where energy settles without moving and becoming heavy, dense, and often emotionally charged. In such zones, the ZZ begins to absorb that stagnation, not as a cleanser, but as a victim. Its growth slows unnaturally. Its posture becomes heavy. And while the plant won't die immediately, it will begin to reflect that blocked flow back into the environment, reinforcing rather than releasing the stuck energy. This mistake mirrors a common life pattern, surviving in dysfunction instead of moving toward health. Many people place plants in their least loved corners, as if trying to fix the space without truly engaging with it. But no plant, no matter how strong, can heal what we continue to ignore. If the area is cluttered, clean it. If the wall is cracked, repair it. If the air is stale, open the window. Then, and only then, invite the ZZ to hold that new intention with you. A third, more insidious mistake is treating the ZZ plant like an inert object. Because it asks for so little, many people forget it altogether. It becomes background noise, a decorative rock with leaves, something you walk past without ever truly seeing. And yet, its symbolism continues to operate. In Feng Shui, everything in your space is either amplifying your intention or weakening it. When you ignore the ZZ entirely, when you allow dust to coat its leaves, when its soil cracks from neglect, when its container gets shoved behind furniture, it begins to reflect back a kind of energetic forgetting. A forgetting of your own emotional body. A forgetting of the plans you once made with such clarity. A forgetting of the promise you made to build a life that was stable, deliberate, and quietly fulfilling. This plant is not decorative. It is participatory. Its leaves are glossy not just for show, but for function. They reflect light, which means they must be kept clean to function fully. Wipe them with a soft cloth once a week, not as a chore, but as a ritual, a moment to check in, not just with the plant, but with yourself. Is this corner of your home still sacred? Is this phase of your life still aligned? Has the room changed and left the ZZ behind? Or is the ZZ trying to signal something that your mind hasn't yet named? A slight yellowing of its lower leaves, for example, isn't always a watering issue. Sometimes it reflects emotional overwhelm in the space, the weight of unspoken tension, the heaviness of trying to hold it all together without pause. Don't rush to fix, observe first, listen, and respond with presence, not panic. The energy of the ZZ is subtle but firm. It's a teacher, not a trophy, a stabilizer, not a symbol, and the mistakes people make with it are rarely about the plant itself. They're about the patterns we bring into the space, the rush to care too much, the habit of ignoring until crisis, the tendency to see support as something decorative instead of interactive. Correcting these patterns doesn't require effort, it requires attention. And that's the deepest lesson of the ZZ. Pay attention, even when nothing seems urgent, especially when nothing seems urgent, because that's where the true recalibration begins. So when you walk past your ZZ plant today, don't just glance. Look, is it leaning? Is it coated in dust? Is its soil still alive? And if you find that it's quietly asking for something, space, light, acknowledgement, know that it may not be the only thing in your life doing so. Respond gently, consistently, and let the energy shift with you. Final, not every wealth tool needs to glitter. Not every catalyst for transformation comes wrapped in intensity, urgency, or grand gestures. Some arrive slowly, like a breath you didn't know you were holding. Some grow patiently, like a lesson that keeps showing up until you're ready to understand it. And some, like the ZZ plant, don't demand your attention at all. They simply hold space for your evolution until you're ready to step into it fully. It doesn't yell, it doesn't bloom with drama, but it stays through chaos, through rebuilding, through the quiet hours of questioning and recalibration. The ZZ plant is a financial and emotional companion for those who no longer chase speed, but seek sustainability. For those who know that true wealth doesn't come from explosive beginnings, but from roots that can hold the weight of real, lived growth. This plant is a testament to the power of quiet support, the kind that doesn't need recognition to be effective, the kind that doesn't require noise to make impact. In Feng Shui, the deepest principle isn't acceleration, it's alignment, not how fast you can get from one milestone to the next, but how integrated you are as you move. And integration happens not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, in the margins, in the places we often forget to nurture. That's where the ZZ works best. It is the architecture of steady wealth. Not the flashy kind, not the social media kind, but the kind that builds families, stabilizes homes, heals nervous systems, and reinforces values that don't just endure one season of success, but multiple lifetimes of purpose. Because there's something sacred about a plant that keeps showing up even when you forget it for a while. Something grounding about a companion who doesn't abandon the mission just because you've temporarily lost your way. This plant teaches through presence, not performance. It whispers what so many of us forget in the pursuit of growth, that you don't need to force momentum to stay in motion. That sometimes the wisest thing you can do is stay grounded, breathe, and let the foundation settle before asking for more. It invites us to slow down, not to stop, but to let our pace match our intention. It reminds us that healing isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about holding a boundary, holding space, holding faith in your own ability to rebuild quietly. So now I want to ask you, not just as a viewer, but as someone who's shaping the energy of your life with every object you place, every plant you water, every space you choose to tend or ignore. Where does your home or office need quiet support right now? Is there a room that feels emotionally heavy? A corner that's been forgotten? A desk where stress pools, where your body tenses before your mind even catches up? Or perhaps a hallway where opportunity never seems to flow, no matter how many plans you sketch? These are the places the ZZ was made for. These are the spaces it doesn't fix, but fortifies. And maybe, just maybe, That's what your life needs most at this moment. Not one more tool, not one more rush, just a witness, a stabilizer, a quiet reinforcement. If you already own a ZZ plant, I'd love to know how it's been showing up for you. Has it become your steady anchor in a season of rebuilding? Has it sat silently beside you through long nights of planning, or just quietly guarded the edge of your space like a green-bodied sentinel? And if you've been considering getting one, let this be your gentle nudge. Not because it's trendy, not because it's easy, but because it might be the only thing in your space that truly understands the value of staying rooted. Drop a comment in below, share your experience, or just tell me what part of your home you are thinking of shifting. I read every message, and this community isn't just here for design tips. It's here for support, for collective realignment, for remembering that our homes are reflections of the inner stories we're rewriting each day. And if this video helped you see your space or your pacing a little differently, share it with someone who's navigating a transition, someone who's tired of the noise and ready for something more meaningful. And I gently invite you to subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. We're growing toward 2,000 subscribers, and every voice that joins us helps keep this space rooted in ancient principles shaped for modern lives. This isn't just a channel, it's a garden, and you're a part of it. Thank you for being here. Let's keep growing, quietly, steadily, together.